thank you, listeners, for joining us on a beautiful day here in northeastern Nevada. All across this Great Basin, we're seeing signs of fall closing in and changing of the season. Well, it can be a bit poignant. If you love summer, it's hard to say goodbye, but fall is a beautiful time, and it's especially a time to mark an occasion known as the observance of the Ruby Valley Treaty of 1863. This is a very special weekend that we're closing in on. And to tell us more about that, from the Noowuh Knowledge Center, we have Mary Gibson, who's the director. Fermina Stevens has been chairing the board of directors, heading up this important endeavor. And from Great Basin College Humanities Center, our friend Gail Rappa is here. She's the coordinator for the center. And Gail, thanks for bringing these wonderful people here today to talk about this.
Well, thanks for having us, Lori. We're always so grateful that you give us a platform to talk about our events. So yeah, we're super excited, and I'll let Mary and Fermina talk about the bulk of the speakers related to the Ruby Valley Treaty Conference itself. But I'll tell you just a little backstory. Excuse me. When we partnered with the Western Folklife Center during the last Cowboy Poetry Gathering, and we brought in Joy Harjo and the Living Nations Living Words Poets, and that was really exciting event, and that's when I first met Mary and we partnered. She helped us a lot with community outreach and getting the word out, and having some wonderful speakers, and we had opening prayer, and we had Shoshone drumming. So it was a really wonderful event. It was standing room only. We had 150 people there. And a bulk of the survey responses said more Native programming. More things like this. We want more Native programming, which was fantastic news for us because that's what we'd wanted to hear. And so when Mary started talking about the Ruby Valley Treaty, I, like so many people, I wasn't born and raised here, but I've lived here, since the late 90s, and I did not know about the Ruby Valley Treaty. It was not part of my, it wasn't part of my knowledge. I've come to find that it's not part of the knowledge of people who grew up and went through the school system here as well. So this felt like a perfect partnership to educate our community, whether they're Native or non-Native, about the Ruby Valley Treaty, which affects the land that we all live on here in northeastern Nevada, in addition to all the other areas that it covers, which Mary and Fermina will talk about. One of the things, a couple things that we're doing, the Humanities Center is doing specifically, in addition to supporting the Noowuh Knowledge Center and all of their fantastic speakers and programs, is that we are bringing up Theo So, who is a Southern Paiute artist. He lives on the Southern Paiute Reservation down outside of Las Vegas. And he's a comic book artist, and his most well-known character is Captain Paiute, and who is a water protector. He's a Native American superhero. So we're really excited to have Theo come up. He's going to do an artist talk on the first day of the treaty conference at 10:30, and talk a little bit about his work, show some examples, and what inspired him to create a Native American superhero. And then he's doing 2 workshops that are free. One is on Friday from 1 to 3, and that's for ages 12 through 17, and we still have room in that workshop. And Saturday is ages 10 and up, and we have a couple spaces in that workshop as well. That one's been more popular because we have a lot of folks that are older who want to attend. They're like, hey, I'm 39, can I attend? I'm like, absolutely. So we're really excited. We're really excited about that. In addition, the Humanities Center oversees the gallery exhibits at Great Basin College, and we were honored to be able to we have on loan from the Elko Band Council a collection that they have, of Western Shoshone traditional arts and crafts. So we have that in combination with some of the private collection of Leah Brady, Western Shoshone basket maker, artist, and teacher. So that is on display in the gallery area in the Green Haw Technical Arts Building, which is where the bulk of the workshops and programs for the Ruby Valley Treaty will be taking place. And that exhibit will be up through the middle of December, so if you don't get a chance to come this weekend to see it, you'll have plenty of time to do that. So we're incredibly grateful, and I just want to shout out to Professor Lori Walsh, our Doctor of Anthropology. She helped Leah and I immensely installing that exhibit, as did artist Marty Bine, because it takes a village, believe it or not. It takes more than one person to do all this. So that's. I'm sure I'll jump in with some other things, but I just will turn it over to Mary, and she can talk about some of the exciting, just amazing lineup that they have planned for this event.
That is open to the public. Gail, thank you so much for helping facilitate the conference and to bring these people together, beautiful people with similar vision, obviously, and the caring that it takes. The mission of the Noowuh Knowledge Center is to educate, preserve, and protect the tribe's culture, history, past, present, and future, and to make their stories easily accessible. And Mary, thank you so much for returning here on the program, because I knew that we would be doing this as soon as our conference drew near. So with that in mind, tell us about how important this weekend is for the Shoshone to share this with the community.
Thank you, Lori, for having us. This is going to be our third annual Ruby Valley Treaty Conference, and we're very excited and happy to have this sharing of ideas, conversations, and just being together as one, listening and learning, and even contributing towards our history. So this is the 160th anniversary of the treaty. And on October 1st, 1863, this treaty was signed with our ancestors, mainly in Ruby Valley. Also, Shoshone people came from other areas in Nevada to conduct this business of treaty making with the United States. I guess I should say we, as Noowuh Knowledge Center, thought this is a very important historical event, as well as the history of our people. And it was something that I thought was necessary that we don't lose sight of, because it was a treaty of peace. The United States wanted to assure that the settlers and people coming through Shoshone territory would not be harmed by our people. But in addition to that, our people were only protecting land and life as the colonial settlers were coming through, and was seeing the devastation it had, mainly on the food supply and also just the land itself. And this was an important event, because I can't imagine what my ancestors had to go through to get to this place. There was a lot of conflict between the two nations, the United States and the Western Shoshone Nation. And when I envision what it was like for my ancestors to have, let me see, I'm going to say they were forced to sign something that was so foreign to them that they probably could not completely understand the total effects of what this treaty meant. And the treaty, as I said, was to make peace and to ensure that no one would be hurt as they traveled here and across the state through our territory. But we did agree, our ancestors agreed to help the United States, and they agreed to put up military posts. And of course, the telegraph and overland stages were an important aspect of westward expansion. And also, mining was also established. The Western Shoshone ancestors, as much as they could give that consent to the United States to be able to do these things. Of course, agricultural settlements and ranches were to be established. And also, what I really like to key in about this treaty is the land itself. because this treaty was not a treaty of secession. It was a peace treaty, and the United States understood the boundaries of that treaty, but though they did recognize it in 1863, it is ignored today as being our land, and so the United States has claimed much of our territory as public lands. I must say that there are many Western Shoshone who disagree that this is public lands, and there have been numerous Western Shoshone people who stood for the treaty and want the United States to live up to the promises. Of course, they promised everything but the land, and so I think that's an important aspect of this treaty, and that people need to understand that it is something that the United States should be able to live up to. I always have to quote the Article 6 of treaties being the supreme law of the land. This is in the United States Constitution, stated as such. And though they are not recognizing our land boundaries today, I think it's important for every citizen in Nevada to know that, and every citizen of Elko and the nation as well, that this is an important living document, and that nothing has changed. We're people of the land. And as we see the land being degraded in so many ways, I think that this is, I think it's hurtful to many people. And though we have to live in amongst a system that our ancestors never understood and the descendants have to adapt to, it is a difficult situation for Western Shoshone, myself included, and that's why I keep this in light, that it is something that we need to converse about and just learn about in particular.
Mary Gibson is the director of the Noowuh Knowledge Center here in northeastern Nevada, where the Ruby Valley Treaty Conference gets underway on Friday through Sunday on September 29th. And Mary, I understand that there are only a couple of treaties left in the United States, and that's another reason why the Ruby Valley Treaty of 1863 is significant. I heard a story on National Public Radio just this week, I believe it was, in Minnesota. They also have a treaty, and they have ongoing issues, many of them very similar to what you're describing. And they do affect people spiritually and physically as well as economically. That's a reality, correct?
Correct. That is very true, Lori. There are so many issues that surround Native people, and usually it is about land and water combined. And like I say, the United States doesn't always live up to their words. And as I have mentioned before, the laws that we're subjected to as Native people, the Aboriginal people of this state, that's really hard to grasp because we have to live under the constraints of federal Indian policy, and that's not always a positive thing for Native people. Our policies that we're directed to live by usually satisfies the interest of the United States. And so even in that aspect, that's a difficult situation, which brings up many issues that surround laws itself.
So among the guests that you have speaking at the conference this weekend, Mary, there'll be a sunrise ceremony at the Elko Colony every morning at 6 a.m., and you're going to have Cliff Benuelos, who will talk about, he'll give the keynote address, and that is in regard to the Treaty of Ruby Valley. Do you think if people come to the conference, they'll have a better understanding of what this means and then what the goal is? Is there something to be achieved as a result, Mary.
Well, I hope so. I believe Noowuh Knowledge Center Board of Directors also hope that this is a worthwhile thing to sponsor on an annual basis. I do want to make a correction, even though this is written into our agenda. We will not be having an opening prayer on Friday. It will occur on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And I do want to also mention that our keynote speaker, Cliff Benalis, is the grandson of Chief Frank Tomoke from Ruby Valley. So we're very honored to have him here as well. He will open up the conference itself. And we're going to have several attorneys here to explain the history of the treaty. And surprisingly, one of the attorneys who will be here but isn't listed on our agenda, because I just found this out today, is John O'Connell, and he represented the Dan sisters in their litigation for trespassing on our own land. But he's going to be joining us along with Tom Lubin, who is also an attorney and has represented various Western Shoshone issues as well. And we're also going to be talking about the doctrine of discovery, which is the foundation of federal Indian law, and Julie Kavanaugh Bill, attorney as well, and legal representation in the international forums at the United Nations will be speaking towards this issue.
Mary Gibson, thank you so much. And this, again, the agenda for this conference is available online, or obviously in our discussion today, we can highlight some of the sessions that you're most hoping the general public will attend. I know formal registration closed earlier in the week, I think, or last week, but that had to do with the meals. Is that correct?
Yes, we didn't expect as many people would be interested. I mean, for the last 2 years, we just averaged probably 40 to 50 people, and people keep calling and they want to come. And we just have to turn them away because, number one, our facility, the capacity is 140 people in the main room that will be having most of these talks. And also, we did our darndest to do all the fundraising we could, and is just not happening with the meals. And so I hope that people who attend can forgive us for that. We just didn't expect such an outpouring of interest. But again, everybody's welcome. If they'd love to listen to any of the sessions, please come. I think Gail will speak to that as well. But in the whole reason is, again, education. And there's many of our own Western Shoshone youth who do not know this history. And I think, well, I know that was in our early talks between Gail and I said, you know, how I'm really wanting our youth to come to learn this history and to keep passing on this history and not to let it go. And she mentioned Theo So, and I knew about Theo So because, for one thing, I'm a librarian, and I just had heard about the marvelous comic book that he has, and I just figured, and always in the back of my mind was, how do I grab the attention of our youth? And kids are not really into recreational reading as much as probably eons ago. And it's been said and talked about among librarians that, just recreational entry reading, graphic novels help with that, because it's not so much as a book, more than it looks like a comic book. And there's been so many marvelous books written as graphic novels that interpret history. And when she mentioned Theo So, I said, yes, that's how we'll get our kids to come learn the history.
And there'll be an opportunity, I believe, for a meet and greet on Friday. And when we come back in your direction, Mary, because we'll shift to Gail a little bit, I want to make sure we fold in Fermina, who's waiting patiently, and that we we get to include her in the conversation too. So Gail, the community can come on Friday, and that'll be in the main room 1:30, and that'll be at the Great Basin College. Is that in the Green Hall Center?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of the speaker events are going to be happening in the Green Hall Technical Arts Building. So for folks who aren't familiar with Great Basin College, when you drive into the main parking lot and you're facing the clock tower with your back to the parking lot, it's the building off to the right, the far right. So you go down, it's just to the right of the clock tower. That's the Green Hall Technical Arts Building. And we'll have sandwich boards with signs and things like that, so folks won't get lost. And just to add to what Mary was saying, so they did budget. The meals are for folks that got registered that are going to attend the whole treaty. They're good to go. For the folks who just want to show up for a talk or two, that's totally fine. And we don't have to. We can set up overflow rooms if things get too large. We don't want to turn anybody away if they are there to listen to one of the speakers, because we're really excited that the interest in this has been so much larger than anticipated.
And I'm sure you expect that it will continue to grow, again, with a 3-day session. And I believe there'll be some discussion, too, on... well, let's see. I know that there's going to be Shoshone songs. Is there going to be an actual visit at some point? Because I know that there is a location, right, Gail? Or is that something people can take a field trip on their own?
Mary can speak to that. They're
Okay.
not going to go up to the actual spot where the treaty signing is.
Not this time.
But that leads us to the other event that's happening on Friday that won't be on campus. It will be at the California Trail Center. And that is, they're doing a reception called the 1863 Ruby Valley Treaty of Peace and Friendship Exhibit and Reception. And excuse me, a handful of our GBC professors are active with the California Trail Center on their board or participating with their newsletter, the Wagon Tongue. And Stephen Ehrlicka is one of them. He's one of our humanities instructors at Great Basin College, and he partnered with Mary, and she can tell you a little bit about how they worked with the Trail Center to get an exhibit.
This might be a perfect time, too, because one of the most compelling things, I guess, in my family, or that I also find that young people get encouraged about, is when they see photos of like ancestors or people. So I'll give you that, and then that's on your poster and materials, and that's... Do we even know who are the people that are portrayed in that beautiful sepia-toned photograph that just gives me chills? I don't know, but
I'm glad you asked, and I'm not sure I can answer that thoroughly. The gentleman in the front is Captain Buck. He's actually one of the treaty signers. And again, this is a reason for this conference, is to connect those dots. Who were these treaty signers? Who are the descendants? I have always wanted to be able to tease that out from the people who attend our events. And so far, little has been said about treaty signers, who they were, where they actually came from. I mean, not every Shoshone lived in Ruby Valley. So we had Shoshones, many in central Nevada, and southern Nevada. So we are, as I understand it, our ancestors all converged through a messenger who sent word to the other Shoshone bands, come to this important treaty peace signing. So it would be wonderful to see if anybody can recognize the people in this picture, but the picture was taken in 1868 by photographer Tim Sullivan. And that would be one of the things that I'd hope one day we can identify actually who these people are. Who are those ancestors in this wonderful, beautiful picture? Mm-hmm. And interestingly, that picture was taken, 3 years after the treaty signing and 1 year before it was ratified. And we just think that it's a key component, and we've been able to use this photograph, this image, to promote this treaty conference.
And one of the things that we've been able to learn since visiting California Trail Interpretive Center, which I believe early on said the mission was to include the story of the Native American people that were here first before the immigrants, the people traveling on to California. And so they were obviously talking about these people would be on foot, right, Mary? They would not be traveling in wagons or horses, or certainly not automobiles.
Basically, I would say most of them were foot travelers, and of course we had the messengers. They ran. They ran from one region to the other, giving messages from whoever was in charge at that time. I mean, that was our moccasin telegraph. We're the runners. It's even been said and told to me by our elder Raymond Yao. He told me that the people, the Northwestern Shoshone, who are located in Utah and who in January of 1863 had the mass genocide at Bear River, and there was a runner that came from Utah to tell the people in Ruby Valley, the military's coming, be prepared. And so that was one of the stories that we were told, or I was told by an elder, and I just think that's quite a fascinating story and an unfortunate massacre for the Western Shoshone, the Northwestern Shoshone in Utah, but that's just what our people did. I mean, that was how communication, as I understand from elders telling stories, how we were able to communicate within, large miles apart. And so we just had our own moccasin telegraph.
Mary, thank you. These are among the stories that we would hope would be included in history books going forward, and I'm sure that that is part of the purpose for the conference this weekend, the Treaty of Ruby Valley Conference. Wow, that's amazing, because we do celebrate the Pony Express. So you would think that we could also include the Western Shoshone runners when you think about the long trip that you take in your comfortable SUV between Elko and Twin Falls. What it must be like to migrate with your babies and literally rebuilding your homes and every stop you make. So that's incredible history. Fermina, you've been waiting so patiently, and I want to make sure, as chair of, now I wanted to make sure we're identifying you correctly. I think you are also involved in local tribal government, or have been, but you're chair of this board that put this together?
Hi, Lori. Correct.
Hi.
Correct, yes. Currently the chairperson for the Noowuh Knowledge Center for, I think, the past 4 years or so. And previously, years and years ago, I was involved with the tribe and politics and that sort of stuff.
Well, thank you for being here today, Fermina. We appreciate it. So what are you hoping to tell people about this weekend's conference, or what means the most to you about the gathering through Sunday, would you say?
I think what's important to me would, as Mary and both Gail have said, is the education part of it, and just informing people that we are here, It seems that sometimes we get left out of the discussion, left out of the history, and so we want to be a part of the discussion. We want to be a part of that history. We want people to know that they are on unceded treaty territory, and we still do have a lot of issues going on that affect us to this day, and that we're trying to bring awareness to. And that what we're going through doesn't only affect the Western Shoshone people, it affects not only those within the treaty territory boundaries, environmentally speaking, we all are affected with the lack of water, and whatever is to become of our water situation in Nevada. So we're just trying to bring awareness and information as a librarian archive, and to be able to archive our history that we can share with the broader public, so everyone is aware of what has happened in the place that we live.
Mm-hmm. And what might happen in the future as a result of having that knowledge?
Correct. I think if everybody is aware of what we have, what we face, that we can, come together and have a dialogue about, what our future may possibly hold.
The cultural event for this weekend, Treaty of Ruby Valley Conference for 2023, opens Friday, again with many events on campus at Great Basin College. However, some will be off-site. The community is invited to attend one or all, but keeping in mind that the meal reservations already been made, and those accommodations are a little tight, but as Gail explained, they won't turn anyone away who wants to come and listen to these important speakers who are coming from near and far to talk about the significance of this event, rooted in Western Shoshone sovereignty and cultural resilience, which are two really key themes as we go forward as a community, as a state, and as a country, Gail. So did we get to most of the topics you were hoping to today, Gail? Because it sounds to me, Mary, did you want to make sure? I was also going to come to you and see if there's anything that we may have forgotten to add before we end today. And you can certainly come back, as we said last time you were on.
I think you asked me the question about the collaboration between Stephen Herdlicka and I, and what is happening at the California Trail Interpretive Center. And I'd forgotten that was part of the question, and I just digressed into other areas. But I was able to meet Stephen through Gail. There's some wonderful things to be said about networking, and that's most definite. But as I was talking to Stephen and knew his connection with the California Trail Interpretive Center, I said, hey, is there any way that you think they'd consider putting up a temporary exhibit during our conference? That would be very cool. And I thought of that as in lieu of not being able to travel to Fort Ruby. That was something I thought was really important. During our first conference, we had such a successful turnout and people willing to drive the 140-mile round trip there. And it was a beautiful day, and the people just enjoyed being there at the fort. I know that there's probably been numerous people who have been to Ruby Valley, but I kept hearing that they had never been to the fort where the treaty was signed. And I wanted that to happen again this year for the 160th anniversary, but plans changed. We just didn't have the capacity to pull it off. And we didn't know what the weather would be like. Gas prices are horrendous, and we were going to ask everybody to carpool. And so I thought the best thing to do was just keep things in town. And with the result of this exhibit, we hope that we can make up for not being out to Fort Ruby.
Well, absolutely. And you can certainly remind people that they can make that trip and travel anytime because that is a significant part of the culture. And I think we could acknowledge the work of the Passport in Time. I believe the public lands agencies, they help to develop that in concert, in collaboration with the Native American history and consultants, correct? So.
Yes, that is correct. That's what I understand. I wasn't here at the time, but I really have to give them a bunch of kudos for including the Native people in that interpretation there.
Okay, so moving forward with that. And also out at the Trail Center, there's an extraordinary exhibit of Owyhee Native youth artwork. And that will be up through October. So this exhibit will accompany that. And I think that's a perfect place to sort of leave off the conversation, is that we are handing it to the youth. We are handing it over to them. We are trusting them. You know, they trusted us. We've got them this far, but the future really is up to them, right, Mary?
You are so right, Lori. The future is theirs, and they have to determine what they want to see in their future, especially here in Nevada when our weather is precarious, our water, I don't know. That's, for me, a frightening thing to think about. What does that hold for our future generations if we run out of water? And I think that's so important to just consider as, a person who lives in this state, non-native or native. We really have to think about that precious element that nature provides, that the Creator has provided us, and it is their future, so it's in their hands. And we hope that they can figure out, what to do. And yeah, I'm just blabbering now, but yes, it is up to the youth to determine what they want for their future.
The 160th anniversary of the 1863 Treaty of Ruby Valley, Still We Rise, Lifted by the Spirit of Ancestors, presented by Noowuh Knowledge Center in partnership with the Humanities Center at Great Basin College. Don't forget, event locations include at Great Basin College on Friday through Saturday, Sunday, October 1st at the Elko Indian Colony Gymnasium. And Gail, in closing, anything that we may have overlooked or that we just want to remind people, it is open to the community.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it, but if anybody has any questions, they can go to the Humanities Center webpage, any of our social media. We have Facebook and Instagram. All the information is there. They can go to the Noowuh Knowledge Center Facebook or webpage. All the information is there as well. And yeah, just reach out if you have any questions and contact us. And then, of course, the Ruby Valley Treaty exhibit at the Trail Center is Friday evening from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. and everyone's welcome. There'll be light refreshments, Shoshone singers, the presentation of the exhibit, and a self-guided tour of the exhibits. So it's just going to be a very full and rich 3-day weekend ahead of us.
Right, and hopefully just the beginning of many, many more, and that it just swells with more attendance and more pride and more support in the many years and decades to come. Thank you. Thank you to our guests. Thank you, of course, Gail Rappa from Great Basin College Humanities Center. She's the coordinator. Mary Gibson is the director of Noowuh Knowledge Center and the chairman of the board, Fermina Stevens, our guest here on Elko Live today on KELK. Thank you, listeners, for joining us.